All right, welcome. Last session of the day. Thanks for coming. We're going to see the Foo Fighters soon, a little bit, but wanted to end the day, kind of last big day of Dreamforce. Tomorrow's a finishing day, talking about something that's a personal passion of mine and frankly a corporate passion of Optima's and the folks we have up here, is really tapping the military, and I'll say veteran, but I focus military spouses as well. That the untapped potential in the hiring market, but also how to take folks transitioning career into corporate world and how to accelerate that growth and kind of take from both the participants, and we have some examples of success stories here and in the audience, but also from the corporate side, how to set up programs to really accelerate that talent and use the programs that are available in the community. So we'll start with just kind of introducing ourselves. So Todd, do you want to start kind of your background and how you're here?
Absolutely. I'm Todd McNamus. I'm General Counsel for Salesforce, and I'm also the executive sponsor of Salesforce's VetForce Employee Resource Group program. I did not serve myself, but I've got deep ties to the military. My father was a career Air Force officer and with a couple tours of duty in Vietnam. My father-in-law was a career Army officer. So both of us, my wife and I, both grew up in military households with and all the benefits that comes with, and all the character-defining moments that come from that. So delighted to be here and with you all talking about the values and the value that veterans and others in the military community bring to Salesforce every day, and to so many other companies of all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
Kate?
My name is Kate Stoker. I am the executive director and co-founder of Marivis. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that started in 2015, partnering with Salesforce Military to get more veterans and military spouses into Salesforce careers. It started sort of as a passion project for a couple of years, doing things on the side, and then Salesforce approached us in 2018 and said, what do you need to do more of this? We want to see you guys offer more cohorts, the way that our programs are structured, and I'll talk about that in a couple of questions. I came on board as our first staff member in 2019, grew significantly over the years, and now this is my full-time gig, working with lovely people in the room and getting people transitioned into great technology careers.
Most of you guys know me. AJ Sawhney, I'm the VP Customer Success here at Optima. Been here for about 3 years, 6-year Army veteran. I think it's interesting that when I came out and I looked for tech jobs, all I saw was Salesforce everywhere. And then when I ended up at Optima, I noticed a pull because it was pretty evident that there was a military-like culture here, but at the time it wasn't purposeful. And I think we'll probably get into how that happened organically. Pleasure to be here. It's obviously a passion of mine.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Adam Menzies. I'm the CEO of Optima, and I'll tell a little bit to start about how we got to that, what AJ was talking about with doing this with purpose. So I've been at Optima a little bit over 3 years. AJ was actually my first hire at Optima to run our customer success group. But about a year into my time at Optima, we had an outside kind of management consulting group come and do work with our executive team. And as we looked at kind of defining core behaviors, we didn't look at core values. We kind of looked at it a little bit differently. Like, what are the behaviors that make people thrive at Optima, both internally and with our customers? And when we laid those behaviors out, then we looked at who in the company exhibits those behaviors, in spades, and then becomes most successful in a culture like Optima's because of that. And when we looked at that list, they were almost all either veterans or military spouses. So we said, this is a pretty simple business decision at that point. I'm a data guy. And when we looked at that data, I said, all right, let's just hire all people that look like this. We want more from that background. And then that's when we really started to dig into some of the programs from the Department of Defense, places like Marivis and VetForce and those things. So that's how we got there. That's why it's so important to us. We're about 40% military, or vets and military spouses. Our goal is to get that over 50%, but we look at that very, very seriously in the programs there. So with that, AJ, why don't you start us with kind of what that journey is like, or what the view from someone coming out of service is looking at trying to make the transition just at a high level and what that feels like coming out of there.
Yeah, I will say it was definitely different for me. So I was National Guard. So if anyone wants to laugh, you guys can laugh, but definitely don't.
You still matter.
Thank you. So my last year in, I was actually deployed. I came back from a deployment, and it was kind of a reset of my career. Prior to that, I was 12 years in retail operations management, and I was like, I definitely don't want to do that again. My wife got me into tech. I got into BI, and I was managing data, and of course, I saw the word Salesforce everywhere, and I was like, that's where I need to be. That's what I need to be doing. And one Google search away, and I saw VetForce, which is now Salesforce Military. They offered free accreditation, and it was pretty obvious that that was an easy path at the time to go. It wasn't very saturated. I think when I joined the group, there was just a handful of us who were part of that original military community within Salesforce. So I think as people exit the military, there are several programs. They now have a 30, 60, 90-day, 6-month out transition period where you have different employers coming, talking to you, different people to come help you transition, guidance counselors, financial help. And I think Salesforce and tech in general has done a really good job at making those options available. I think there are really creative ways for things like the GI Bill to be used and the DoD and seeing where they can help. So all of those things are available, and I think Salesforce has done the best job out of most to make that path clear.
Yeah, I'll say as we've looked at hiring more and more out of this, it's been amazing to see the skill bridge programs and the programs the DoD has. I think for corporations who are newer to this, I think you think the assumption is we're hiring some folks who have been in one line of work, and now we're hiring them and they really don't have experience in this side. But what they've done in skill bridges, we're getting people that are already certified. They're certified project managers, are certified in Salesforce. They're ready to go. I mean, they hit the ground ready to work and ready to go, and then you take those behaviors on top of that, and it's been a great learning for what AJ's been able to show us, and then as we built the program, programs like Kate's and Maribus. So, Kate, can you explain kind of the program and what you all do, maybe a little more in depth?
Yeah, so as I said, we started as a passion project in 2015. My ex-husband, Hector Perez, and Joe Castro, our third co-founder. Hector and Joe were both sort of in the Salesforce ecosystem. Hector was an Air Force veteran, and he just sort of saw how to connect these dots to get people into jobs. It was right around the same time that VetForce was starting to grow within Salesforce, and what we developed was where Trailhead, what has become now Salesforce Military, was very much at-scale, self-paced online training. We developed sort of a cohort or a boot camp style training that was much more structured. They range anywhere from 5 to 8 weeks, where you go through it with other veterans, with other military spouses, with others. So you have a built-in community of people that are in the same boat that you are in making these career transitions. We layered on mentoring, we layered on coaching, and it's a portion of the time is very sort of asynchronous. We leverage Slack for collaboration, and then we have sort of an intensive week, which is a lot of the Trailhead Academy type classes. So it's very community driven, it's very structured, it's very high touch, which is sort of the kind of complementary model to what Salesforce Military has. And it took off, especially during the pandemic. We were doing 1 or 2 cohorts a year until I came on board. We did 3, and then we did 9, and in 2020 we did 17 cohorts, and we've sort of leveled out around 15 or so. But I think the community that we have built is, and the value of that you have someone, helping you up, that when you've been successful, someone like AJ will come to me and say, hey, I need to hire some more junior admins. Who do you have that's gone through and gotten their certification recently? That kind of community and that kind of structure really appeals to different types of learners. We also offer advanced certifications, so not just admin. We also, one of kind of our approaches is that we want to not get people into the ecosystem, but also move them through. So platform app builder, we have a CPQ cohort starting in about a month. We just wrapped up CRMA. So keep giving them the opportunity to continue to build those skills so that they can come back and take the next sort of class of people and pull them into the ecosystem has been really successful. And it's great to see graduates that went through Merivis in 2016 coming back as coaches, coming back as mentors, coming back as sponsors or hiring partners. And it kind of keeps that ecosystem and that cycle going. So I love what I get to do every day, and it's been really wonderful to see how it's evolved. We flipped from in-person classes in Austin, Texas, which is where we were sort of focused originally, to virtual during the pandemic, which also just opened up the accessibility for people all over the country that couldn't necessarily get to Austin for that in-person class. And we've launched new sort of hands-on workshops, and we offer a bunch of resources around resume reviews and mock interviews and sort of all of those things, establishing a LinkedIn presence, things that when you're in the military, you don't do. And really sort of addressing some of those mentalities that you pick up in the military and how they need to be adapted to get into corporate America, specifically into the tech sector. So it's been a wonderful journey, and I'm just feel very blessed in what I get to do every day.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it is, I think, preparing for that. We just had a session recently, kind of an online session that Optima ran, but it made me think of it of using the experiences that you have and the stories from the military career in the corporate setting in the right ways, and kind of using those things that are really valuable and transitioning their use into this side. So I think that's like the LinkedIn presence you're talking about, those are as important as anything else, really, to get kind of that mode.
Well, and also just the value that they bring, helping them understand how to transform what they did in the military into how does that map to business skills, because that can be sort of a different jump for them to understand. We have lots of people who think like, oh, well, what do I have to bring to the table? And we're like, you can manage projects, you can work under pressure. There's so many different skills that they have. That's life experience. You can't teach that.
Exactly, and I think those are things that may not be so obvious, that are the actual like superpowers to bring out, and that was what makes it such an easy thing to see the value of. Todd, from inside a corporation like Salesforce, if there's folks here who are looking to hire, how do you see the role of executive sponsor, and how important is that, and kind of leading from the top with this kind of mission in mind?
Well, I think it's helpful to have some kind of organizational structure that can help bring people together and provide both a forum for people to be able to share experiences, to help each other, to support each other, and that's what VetForce was originally intended to do: provide that space for veterans that can oftentimes feel alone if they don't know. Many leaders in corporations, many managers at every level don't even realize that they have veterans, that are in their groups, and because folks can feel isolated and not have a place to share that in a place that feels safe. And so having that organizational structure with something like an employee resource group like VetForce, you can have that in a company of any size, and I think it's a very important organizational structure to provide for that. And then there's always helpful to have, depending on how the company itself is structured, to have some leadership that can help advocate for some of those things that are going to be beneficial for veterans and for military spouses and family members that might be affected by as employees of the company. But it really, from my experience, it really comes from the grassroots, that the power is in the veterans and in their stories and in the value that they bring to the organization. And I love keying off on something that you were saying about those skills that are they're the skills that, in some ways, they're almost really character traits that veterans and those in the military community bring, that are the success factors no matter what the role is. And any hiring manager in any role, anywhere, is looking for those traits of resilience and creativity and dependability and leadership and teamwork. All those things. Those are those human traits that every hiring manager wants, and they're what separates maybe good from great.
Right.
And so those being able to showcase those, being able to understand that those are the true values. And as I look at, as technology is evolving, and it becomes more and more important to figure out, what are the human values that are going to be added to the new, in relationships between technology and people. Those human traits and all of those are going to become ever more important than they are now. So, yes, I think there's leadership, and executive leadership, I think, is helpful, but it is, I feel like, a kind of symbiotic relationship with the with folks themselves, they can really speak best on their behalf.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we'll talk a little bit about onboarding in a second, but I think when we look at it for onboarding and training, I mean, Trailhead and other things, I can teach, or our teams can teach. I don't know that I can teach anymore, but our teams can teach you how to do Salesforce, right? We can teach you how to do those things. We can teach you those technical skills and that. It is nearly impossible to teach someone those core behaviors once they're an adult in the workplace. So that's, and back to the story about how Optima ended up kind of with this focus, that's what we found, where they're intrinsic things that you cannot teach. And if you have those as foundational, then putting some skills for consulting or for Salesforce on top of that is magic, right? So things we can teach, things we can control, either Kate or AJ, kind of as people are transitioning and onboarding, what are the priorities they are looking for in teams or in the onboarding process or getting settled into role? You know, how do they see it, and what's important to be focused on during those first maybe 30, 60, 90 days for people?
I think from a veteran perspective, the biggest thing is not the feeling of not wanting to start over. Coming out as someone who's done 3 years, 6 years, 10, 20, and then the thought of having to start as an entry-level person where you're not managing people or their lives or millions of dollars worth of equipment or, you know, running missions. That is probably the most frightening thing that I hear from peers. I think that there are ways around that. And I think understanding the first thing that a veteran or a military spouse, even once you're post-military in your life era, is going back to the real world and assimilating in and understanding that the community that you've always been able to lean on isn't necessarily there anymore. So there's a little bit of an emotional detachment period that I think that there probably needs to be a little bit more guidance to prep for.
And I'll add to that, the things that, and you mentioned this as well, is giving them a community, even if it's just one person that can understand the experience that they're going through. That can make a huge difference in making them feel like they're part of something bigger. A lot of the veterans that Maravis works with, they're choosing their company based on the values that that company has. They're looking for, am I gonna be part of a team? Am I gonna be part of a community? They are not usually chasing the paycheck. They're looking for a home. And when you can create an environment that makes them feel part of that community, it's very successful. The other thing that I have found from people that have either been very successful or not is structure. When you're in the military, you're given an objective, you're given guardrails, you're given information, and then you do with that what veterans and military spouses do. You solve problems. And sometimes when that is fuzzy, it can be very frustrating to them where they're like, I don't know what the objectives are I'm working towards. So the more structure, the more, even if it feels to like a civilian, it can feel like a little too much done to them. That's what they're used to. And I think that can be very successful in assimilating them into the company culture and making them part of the team and understanding sort of what their objectives are once they get into the company.
Todd, are there things that Salesforce has been in this quite a while now? Are there things that you as a corporation have learned that have worked, haven't worked? How do you see it with vets inside the organization?
Yeah, so you know, the relationship between Salesforce and the military does go back a ways, and a lot of people don't realize it. But for us, it goes back to General Colin Powell. He was the inspiration in a lot of ways for Mark Benioff in founding our 1-1-1 model, where we give 1% of our time, 1% of our equity, and 1% of our product to nonprofits for them to use in the communities. So for us, that notion of service is woven into our DNA, and so it's a natural thing for us when it comes to association with veterans in the military for that sense of service. So we look for learnings wherever we can find them, you know. And so we find learnings in the nonprofit space too, and through the veteran community, but. You know, some of the key things we found are, like Kate was saying, that sense of community and needing to give people that opportunity to have a safe space to share experiences. is important. Having just different needs when it comes to benefits, and needing to have the opportunity, for instance, to be considerate of very very specific needs, and the fact that veterans oftentimes have very good health care. Through TRICARE or through the VA, that maybe they would like to keep, but if they turn down the Salesforce sponsored healthcare, that that's something that's something of value that they're turning down, and trying to find ways to recognize those things, trying to recognize the continued sacrifices on behalf of veterans that may not be apparent to somebody in the organization that doesn't have that experience. So we've tried to gather some of these experiences together, and that we've ourselves had over the years, that we've learned through others like the VA and through other experts in the field, compile this together into a trailhead for folks to benefit from. And so Trailhead, our online learning platform where anyone can take courses for free. We have a trailhead called Strengthening and Diversifying Your Workforce through Military Recruiting. That's one place we try to aggregate a lot of those learnings. But yeah, there's a tremendous amount of that you can do once you are intentional about it and mindful about it, and really looking for where are those differences where veterans can use some additional recognition and additional acknowledgement of their particular sacrifice.
Yeah, I think the answers align with our journey and how we learned. I think when AJ, you were the first to be hired in that way, but we have a number of others here that came from the same, and I think that we weren't very good at it, frankly, 3 years ago or so when we started that. AJ will use more blunt language probably, but I think we learned. And I think the things that worked for us were putting in structure and kind of a program around it. Not kind of, but definitely a program around it. But I think what made it really work was and I think you said it well, from the corporate level. I think we put the flag out there that we're doing this and we're serious about it, and we see the value and we want this to work. But then it came down to AJ and Bree and Sierra and some others are sitting here that come to mind, but people, they kind of self-led it. So once they knew we were intentional about it and we were being very vocal that this is something we're focused on, then the folks that were in that community within Optima started to basically fix the problem themselves, which I think goes very along with the behaviors, but then they built the program that fit for what they were, and that work has worked really, really well, and we just continue to enable that from the top, but in reality, they know best how to build that, and I think that's worked out really well. Yeah, Kate?
Two things to add on to that is that I think are overlooked is the military spouse community is one of the most valuable and underemployed groups that I work with at Maravis, and offering them, which Salesforce does very well, offering them the flexibility where they can move and not have to start their career over is life-changing for them. I talk to lots of people who, when they cross state lines, they lose certifications or they lose licenses. So giving them a career path that they can grow in because you're giving them the flexibility, recognizing the sacrifice that they're making as a military spouse can be also very, very valuable. So yeah, just wanted to add that on because
there are two
there's
mil
several.
spouses.
I know.
There are two mil spouses sitting here that I know and I have to think every time I see them, where do they live right now? Because I can't keep track of the state they currently exactly, yeah. Or I'll think about a time zone. Wait, she doesn't actually live there anymore. She's on this side of the country now. So, yeah.
Well, and I was going to say one other thing that Optima does really well because of AJ and Bree is when you're recruiting from this community, meet them where they are.
Yes.
They may not necessarily know how to get to you, and they may not feel like they are worthy of these tech jobs. There's a lot of sort of imposter syndrome and how does my experience translate into a tech type of career when you go out to, whether it's Salesforce Military or Maravis or Hiring Our Heroes or any of these other organizations, go out to them and meet them where they are and kind of welcome them into your recruitment process. I think a lot of people kind of like, okay, well, what can we do to increase our military recruitment? You really have to go out and build those relationships and then just kind of create those pipelines.
Yeah, and for me, I did not serve, and for someone who's been in the consulting world for a very long time, you kind of get used to a certain type of personality all the time, and a certain type of skill set and background, and everyone kind of looks similar. I think what was a learning for me was to be really empathetic through AJ, Bree, Sierra, others in our organization who were telling, I couldn't understand it, but they were telling me and those on our team who hadn't served, this is what it's like. We need to fix this, change this, do this differently, and being just open to that, frankly, and trusting of, if they're saying that's what we need, then that's what we need to do. So, AJ, you've, over the years, I know, and true to form, you're very humble about this. You don't really put it out there, but I know that you do it because it comes up once in a while, and you're mentoring people in the community through some other programs. You do that on your own through organizations. Maybe for those that are making the transition, are there just mentoring long-term, not like a Merivis to skill up, but long-term kind of guides and how people can get involved in those kind of programs?
Yeah, so actually the first volunteer work that I did was through Merivis. My wife went through the program as a cohort member, and then I actually I helped mentor someone through the program. But outside of that, I've used Veterati pretty successfully. It's veterans only, it's not military spouses, but you'll find people of all different experience levels in all different industries. You can go through and choose profiles just like you would LinkedIn, and you can say, oh, this person's an RVP at Salesforce. I want to be that one day, and it's perfect. That's always worked really well for me. I don't know if I've done much more. There used to be a few other organizations that used to exist and be a little bit more busy in the past, but right now Veterati and Merivis are the two for me.
Kate, if folks here who maybe haven't served but they want to support Merivis or companies that want to get involved, how would they go about that?
Yeah, so lots of different ways. In Merivis, we try to do a really good job of understanding what a company's goals are and how we can kind of create a win-win situation. Everybody has different priorities, what they're looking for to hire. Are they looking for employee engagement? Are they looking to give us financial support? And we try to really kind of create that sort of 360 approach to engagement with our programs. So employee engagement is an easy one, coming in as a volunteer, as a coach, whether that is a functional expertise, whether that's a technical expertise. The financial support, I am a very big proponent of volunteer hours, pro bono hours. All of those things does not matter if we don't have staff to run those types of programs. So financial support always makes a huge difference with nonprofits. And it also demonstrates kind of true support of the military community as well. A lot of times especially like around Veterans Day, we have companies that we work with on our annual campaign, which is sort of our major fundraising push for the year. And we build a joint campaign that they can also then run internally. So it's really about kind of demonstrating that we're supporting these organizations that are supporting the pipeline, supporting the military community, and kind of creating that cycle. So, I mean, the easiest way is to just get in touch with me, to be honest. And again, have a sit down about what are your goals, what are your hiring needs, what what specific expertise you're looking to bring on. And then those relationships, partnerships also kind of feed into, are there skill gaps that you are seeing in your hiring and your recruitment? Are there patterns that you're seeing that are not being addressed? And with that, we can feed that feedback into our programs. So we try to keep kind of a close pulse on what is the Salesforce ecosystem looking for, and then how do we train to that to ensure that our graduates are at the top of the talent pool. So it's very relationship driven, which I love. But yeah, I think, employee engagement is the easy one, financial support is the easy one, and then just advocacy. I mean, just what you've done for us this week with Dreamforce is huge. Nonprofits don't have the resources to play downtown San Francisco during Dreamforce, but giving us an opportunity to talk about our mission and to, potentially build those relationships and introduce people to our mission is very, very critical for people that have limited resources.
It is really relationship connection driven, Todd, on the Salesforce military side, and Salesforce as a larger entity. For individuals and companies that want to get involved kind of in the community, are there people or places at Salesforce that they should go first?
Merivis,
Yeah,
of course. We do try to have a number of different touch bases and different places that people can interact with Salesforce through, through Salesforce Military, through the trailheads, has been a tremendous source for us. We've got, I think, 60,000 veterans that have gone through that program now, on our way to 80,000 commitment that we've made to successfully go through that program by 2026. So that's definitely a key focus area for us. AJ mentioned Veterati. That's also one that we support. The Skills Bridge program, you mentioned that as well. That's one that we find to be a great program. We've had wonderful fellows that have come through that program, and now with that being expanded to military spouses, and delighted to see that as well.
Great. Anything else, other closing comments or things you'd like to add that we haven't touched on yet?
I mean, I think when we're looking at what the average person in the Salesforce ecosystem can do to facilitate the hiring of people from the military community, one of the things that I have always said, and Ann Wiebe told me this many years ago, is everyone got to the position that they're in their careers because somebody somewhere took an extra 5 minutes to talk to you and really truly understand the value that you bring. One thing that I see, and we talk about it at Meravis, imposter syndrome is one, or what I call the friction of growth, because I hate the word imposter syndrome. Soapbox. But it's that if taking an understanding really what they did in the military and translating that into something that can be a business skill set, that extra time spent is incredibly valuable. People in the military, and you can talk to this as well, don't sell themselves. They're given an assignment, they go fulfill that assignment. The sort of positioning themselves in their resume and sort of like, these are the projects that doesn't come naturally to them. They're not gonna get in front, they're gonna answer your questions, but the sort of positioning is very challenging for a lot of them. That's why, especially like on LinkedIn and social media, they're like, I don't wanna self-promote. And I'm like, but you have to put your story out there and the value that you add. You almost have to pull that out of them. But once you get that conversation started, or you figure out what they're passionate about, again, that energy sort of turns on, and they end up being the best employees you'll ever have because of the life experience that they bring. But it takes extra time to kind of get into their story and really understand what it is that they did, what the value add is, and then sort of take it from there. But I think that's another thing, just in terms of like best practices, is don't expect a veteran to go sell themselves. It's just not their nature.
That's the number one piece of advice I give on Veterati.
Yeah.
It's the number one thing that I see people have struggles with. So I'm seconded.
Yeah.
And I'll add to that as well. I mean, I spend a fair amount of time as executive sponsor with the members of VetForce doing the same thing, saying that you've got amazing stories to tell, you got a lot of value to add and to convey by telling your story. But that selflessness, that is the nature, that is one of the most, treasured virtues, which I myself admire that and treasure that. But there's a time and a place, for it, and there's a time and a place for speaking up too.
Yeah.
Any questions from those in attendance? Any other areas you want to talk about? Sure.
Sorry, it's not so much a question, but just really driving home what was just brought up about them not self-promoting. If you think about the promotion process within the military, you rarely get to raise your hand and say, I want to move into this role.
Yeah.
It's a very
Yes.
short process where you check these boxes, you do these trainings, you serve this amount of time, and then you are pushed into the next position. And so as employers, if you can think about what additional supports do we need to give our military and military veterans to help them understand how to promote themselves within an organization, because otherwise you're going to have these amazing employees, but they're going to languish in roles because they don't understand the civilian promotion structure.
Yeah.
And really just having that in place. I would even go so far as to say outside of the military community, any underrepresented communities that you're trying to advocate for in your space, whether it's underrepresented races or genders or whatever, like having structures in place that equalize the promotion process not just focusing on the hiring process.
Great point.
Good call, Scott.
Great comment. Sure.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Haley Teller. I'm the co-founder of a partner firm, teeny weeny tiny, that hopes someday to be as successful. One of the things I would love to hear talked about more that I don't think it's talked about enough is how good vets are at entrepreneurship, right? And I think that sometimes it's certainly been my experience that through most of my time as a consultant, a lot of these arguments fall on deaf ears if people aren't already warm to them, right? Like if it's not already, like you came into this with this value set, you knew this was a goal when you set out. It is really hard, right, to turn that ship for the organizations that are not like that, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that could really help with this is supporting more of us that are entering that space. I would love to have an opportunity to have a mentor like you. So, you know,
Let's do it.
those kinds of yeah. And I think
Writes down follow-up action.
I also you guys who have Salesforce's ear, championing some of us, right?
Yeah.
And helping push Salesforce to recognize that we need that help and we need that recognition. When we're at some of these smaller stages, you could do a lot.
That's awesome.
Turn the tide and make more employers more veteran friendly.
Yeah. I will say it's an interesting conversation all the time with my peers. I try to lead with what I led with this morning, right? This is not a random, let's pick an underrepresented group and let's focus on that. This was, frankly, and not to make it, it's not virtuistic. It was a business decision. It was a business reason. We found core behaviors that fit people that thrive in our culture and in front of customers, and that's why we went after this. And when you put it in that manner to other business leaders, it's a more interesting topic at that point than we picked a random cause that we want to have a rally point around. This was for a business reason, and then when you start there, I think that gives it staying power. We've done some other things at Optima as well for periods of time, and they're hard to keep maintained. But when there's a business result and a business reason to it, and you can communicate that well within the organization, it stays, and it gains momentum with people that are successful in that.
Well, and then even tying that back to revenue, once you've got that culture established that welcomes them, your retention is higher.
Yes.
Which keeps your onboarding costs high. I mean, and so it kind of self-perpetuates into
Exactly.
this just very sustainable method of pulling this community in. The way that affects your bottom line, that's data, that's numbers, and so
Exactly.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there too.
They're loyal
And that's
people.
before we even get into tax credits.
Loyal people by nature, and then they're loyal to each other.
Yes.
And then when you get more and more of them, they have more people they're loyal to,
Yeah.
and it becomes a real team.
And then you're building out this community within your company
Yeah, that's right.
because you've created the culture that's going to foster that.
Exactly. Jeff?
I'm not a veteran, and I don't have a military spouse. But I think I'm probably the first generation in my family that's non-military. I think everybody that I can think of has served. Latest is my father, who's a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, the F-16s. And my wife has 5 sisters, and she grew up in Annapolis, so they all married Navy. And they all retired as, they all retired as captains in the Navy. So I have a lot of exposure to military, retired military personnel. And Adam, you've said a couple of times that it's a critical business decision to look for behaviors in people that you want to hire for. But you said one thing, and you mentioned it once, and it was really brief, and I think it's critical, and that is that you listen. Because there are a lot of people that have, I'll use the bad term, imposter syndrome, or that don't self-promote well, or that, and I'm one of them, I don't self-promote, period. And so when I left my job at Salesforce, I looked for something similar to what I was doing. And actually, Dan Tamos sent me to Optima, and I had no expectations, but I interviewed with Lydia Woods, corporate. I didn't ever find me. And first thing I want to say is that mindset permeates through the company, that everybody does the same. We listen well. And I talked to Lydia and interviewed for a solution engineer position. And I was so impressed because we got maybe a quarter of the way through that interview, and she said, yeah, solution engineer, but I've got this other position, and she referred me to the job that I do now, and it was probably the best career change of my entire career, and that's because someone took the time to listen.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm not military, but I can tell you that all of my brothers-in-law, my dad, and anybody else that I've seen make transitions are the same way. They don't go out knowing what they want to do and self-promoting. And I think they all would have done better in a lot of ways if someone had taken the time to just, listen and again have that mentality of hiring for those behaviors.
That's awesome.
Thank
and Jeff does not self-promote, but he is awesome. You should talk to him about Salesforce for sure. Any other questions or comments? Sierra?
So I'll speak from the military spouse perspective. One of the things that I talk about a lot with spouses who are entering into the ecosystem is you are going to be met with so many people who want to help you. So take them up on that, because it is incredible seeing how we support each other. And then once you've had that support, how you pour it back into whatever community has supported you. We talk about a lot about how, take care of the organization and the organization will take care of you. And I have loved being able to help other military spouses go through the same thing that I did, right? People are always like, thank you so much. I'm like, listen, I got a lot of help to get to where I was. And it took a lot of leadership and people to look at me and say, oh my goodness, you bring so many great things to the table because you do go through that. What did you call it? Friction?
I call it the friction of growth, because I feel like imposter syndrome just reinforces all that icky feeling that you have. So, but that's what it is. This is the uncomfortable piece of your career taking on. I mean, if it was comfortable, it wouldn't be growth.
And it's true how much excitement we have to come to the table and show what those great skills that we have to provide to whatever community is pouring into us.
Yeah.
We are fantastic team players, right? You move to a new place and all of a sudden you've got 10 people who are like, you need sheets, you need pans, you need an emergency contact for your kids. Like, we've never met, but I'm here for you. Right? Like, you get that when you hire a military spouse. So just calling out that we are so excited to show up because we just want to feel seen for the amazing things that we bring to the table.
Military spouses are fantastic project managers.
Military spouses are the hidden gem. That's what I say a lot. And one of the military spouses, Bree, is sitting there and she's messaging me, telling me we have to end. So I'll share one thing.
Like I said, really good project managers.
I'll share one thing very quickly. But before this, someone said, this has been a full-time job to build this facility that we're in. And someone else said, it's actually like a 5 full-time job thing, but Bree did it. So she just did it on her own, one person. But she is a military spouse, and that's why that happens, because they are grinders, right? Yeah, her husband is deployed, and still, she just presses on, so awesome. We do have a video to wrap up and finish, and then we'll take off. So I will see if I can get that to work.
1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. What do you do? 2, 3, 4. You 1, 2. 1, 2.
There was a lot of rough times for Sheldon when he got back home, not being able to find a job.
Coming out of the military, some people are very prepared, some people are somewhat prepared, and some people are lost.
I was struggling, man. I used to have to give blood, plasma, just to get money.
My only boy, that was hard.
And everything was tech, and the whole cloud thing was coming. I was like, I have to find something. And that's what led me to Maris.
When he met Hector, it changed his life.
You know, he didn't know me, but I shared some stories about my military experience, my career, and Salesforce.
I thought he was a salesman. I thought he was, I didn't believe it. But I also was telling myself, like, if this is true, this is it.
Hector wanted to establish an organization focused on Texas veterans that didn't just offer the training, but offered all of the skill sets that come with looking for your next career. Welcome to the Merivis family. We're going to set you up for success.
Architects, business analysts, project managers, we need an influx of talent. Take these people that have, incredible perspective, life experience, drive and ambition, and bring them into the Salesforce ecosystem. It's a win for Salesforce, it's a win for Salesforce's customers, and it's a great career for veterans and military spouses.
It was compelling enough for him to take that first step.
Merivis and Trailhead gave me the tools and the resources to get my career started. I just took off with it. Now, employment comes searching for me.
I cried because I was like, man, he's making his place in the world.
He was just so excited that he has to tell the entire world why he's so happy.
You know how many people I've talked to that just don't know what's going to happen when they're going to get their next paycheck, what's going to happen with their job, or if they could lose their job today, And I told them, like, man, Salesforce can take away all that.
If you see yourself climbing to the top, reach back and grab your brother or your sister. Pull them up with you.
You get that super badge and you show him what you've been doing on Trailhead, y'all are going to do fine.
Paying it forward is a really core part of Merivis.
This is a community of veterans that are now rising and then sending the elevator back down.
There's a ripple effect to that just hits all of society.
The feeling of being able to get back and to help somebody at the end of the day, there's nothing else like it.
People in the military, they just take care of one another. That's how Merivis works. We're family, we help each other out.
Thank you all for sticking around for some extra minutes. Thank you all. Great discussion. Let's go see Foo Fighters.
Yeah.